Harlem's hip-hop streets are buzzing, and this time, the drama is bigger than ever. What happens when loyalties are tested, alliances shift, and the very people you thought had your back suddenly turn on you? That's exactly what fans are asking after Maino publicly put Jim Jones on blast over his support for Max B. For years, Jim Jones has been a central figure in Harlem hip-hop, a respected veteran, a voice of influence, and someone who has shaped the careers of countless artists. But when news broke that he was backing Max B, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Some saw it as a bold move, a show of loyalty in a world where alliances constantly shift. Others viewed it as betrayal, especially in the streets, where trust isn't just a word, it's a currency. Maino didn't hold back. Social media posts, subtle digs in interviews, and public commentary all painted a picture of frustration, disbelief, and confrontation. According to insiders, this isn't just about music. It's about respect, influence, and power dynamics that have been simmering beneath the surface for years. And now, Harlem itself is watching. Fans are debating every move, analyzing every comment, and picking sides. Who is in the right? Who is overstepping? And most importantly, what does this mean for the future of Harlem hip-hop? Today, we're breaking down every shocking angle, every insider claim, and every twist in the Maino versus Jim Jones Max B saga. Once you hear it all, you'll understand why Harlem streets are literally exploding with opinion and outrage. To truly understand why Maino putting Jim Jones on blast has Harlem streets buzzing, you need to go beyond social media posts and YouTube reactions. This is about years of alliances, influence, and unspoken rules in one of hip-hop's most storied communities. Harlem is a place where respect isn't just earned, it's constantly tested, and every move, every word, and every public post can ripple through the streets in ways outsiders rarely see. Jim Jones has long been a heavyweight in Harlem hip-hop. From Dipset's rise to his own solo ventures, he's built not only a career, but an image as a leader and gatekeeper in the scene. Over the years, that influence has extended far beyond music. Fans, aspiring artists, and peers alike have watched his moves closely, knowing that his decisions can make or break reputations. Enter Max B. The Brooklyn rapper, often a polarizing figure in hip-hop, has been at the center of controversy for years. His influence and street reputation have made him both respected and feared in equal measure. So when Jim Jones showed support for Max B, whether through interviews, social media posts, or subtle endorsements, it didn't just catch attention, it shook the foundations of Harlem's local hierarchy. Maino, another respected figure in Harlem, has always been vocal about loyalty and integrity. Known for speaking his mind, he has never shied away from calling out peers when he feels respect has been broken. According to sources close to the Harlem scene, Maino's reaction wasn't impulsive, it was calculated. He wanted to make it clear that supporting Max B in the current climate wasn't just a personal choice, it was a statement that could be interpreted as taking sides against Harlem's traditional codes of respect. The streets noticed immediately. Social media exploded with debate. Hip-hop commentators tried to parse every post and comment, searching for hidden meanings. Every line in interviews, every like or retweet, was dissected. Fans speculated about whether Maino was genuinely angry, whether Jim Jones miscalculated, or whether this was all part of a larger strategy no one outside the inner circle could understand. Some insiders claim the tension goes even deeper. Years ago, Jim Jones had his own conflicts with members of Harlem, disputes that were never fully public but were felt within the community. Maino, observing these patterns, allegedly interpreted the Max B support as a continuation of actions that seemed dismissive of Harlem's legacy and loyalty culture. The fallout was immediate. Interviews became tense, social media interactions grew colder, and subtle jabs started surfacing in ways that fans couldn't ignore. Even artists who weren't directly involved started weighing in. Some defended Jim Jones, calling his support for Max B a personal choice and a sign of independence. Others sided with Maino, arguing that street respect isn't negotiable and that the endorsement broke unspoken codes. The internet amplified every angle. Reaction videos, Twitter threads, and Instagram posts added layers of speculation, some credible and some purely for clicks. Yet the most interesting element wasn't just the commentary, it was the way the streets themselves began taking sides. Conversations in Harlem didn't just focus on Max B or Jim Jones individually, they centered on loyalty, respect, and the responsibilities of influential figures in hip-hop communities. Sources suggest that behind the scenes, conversations were happening quietly. Managers, close friends, and other Harlem artists tried to mediate. Emails, calls, and private meetings reportedly took place, attempting to smooth over the tension before it spilled publicly. Some say these efforts were successful to an extent, but not enough to prevent the explosion online and on the streets. Meanwhile, the stakes were higher than most realized. With reputations on the line, alliances shifting, and new voices rising in Harlem, this wasn't just a feud, it was a lesson in power, perception, and the fragility of street loyalty. Every move made by either Maino or Jim Jones was being watched, analyzed, and judged, not just by fans, but by peers who knew that a single misstep could change trajectories in the community. Adding fuel to the fire, social media amplified even minor incidents. Every post or comment was scrutinized for hidden messages. The phrase "put on blast" became a rallying cry for debate, symbolizing not just criticism, but a public accountability test in the streets of Harlem. Maino's public statements weren't just about Jim Jones, they were a warning to everyone in the community about the importance of loyalty and the consequences of perceived disrespect. At the same time, Jim Jones' response, or lack thereof, added tension. Silence can be powerful, but in the digital age, it also speaks volumes. Some fans interpreted it as indifference, others read it as strategy. Either way, the ambiguity only made the feud more compelling. Meanwhile, the Max B angle continued to dominate conversations. Was supporting Max B a personal choice, a career move, or a political statement within Harlem's street code? Insiders suggest it may have been all three. In communities where music, reputation, and respect are intertwined, even small gestures carry massive implications. The result? Harlem's streets became divided. Friendships were strained. Alliances shifted. Social media feeds filled with debate. Every new post, comment, or subtle hint from either artist reignited the conversation, keeping it alive long after the initial blast. And while the internet thrives on exaggeration, it's important to remember that some of the tension is rooted in real emotions and history. These aren't just headlines, they are reflections of pride, loyalty, and the high stakes of influence in Harlem hip-hop. One thing is clear, this isn't just drama, it's a test of loyalty, legacy, and respect, and the repercussions are already being felt throughout the community. The streets are watching, fans are debating, and everyone is waiting to see who will make the next move. We'll dive into the heated confrontations, insider claims, and public exchanges that followed, including how this feud escalated online and in Harlem itself, and why the consequences could be bigger than anyone expected. After Maino publicly called out Jim Jones for backing Max B, Harlem streets were buzzing with tension, debate, and raw emotion. What started as a subtle social media post quickly escalated into a full-blown discussion across the city and online, leaving fans, artists, and commentators scrambling to interpret the meaning behind every word, every like, and every indirect message. Sources close to the Harlem hip-hop scene claim that Maino's reaction wasn't just about personal feelings, it was about preserving street codes that have guided the community for decades. In these circles, loyalty isn't negotiable, and public endorsements carry weight far beyond social media clout. To Maino, Jim Jones supporting Max B allegedly crossed a line, and making that statement publicly was his way of sending a message that respect and allegiance are non-negotiable. For Jim Jones, the situation reportedly sparked a mixture of surprise and frustration. According to insiders, he did not anticipate that his support of Max B, whether as a personal choice or public acknowledgement, would provoke such a strong response. But in Harlem, perception is reality, and even the most seasoned artists know that silence can be interpreted as either indifference or concession. The streets noticed the tension immediately. Hip-hop commentators, from YouTube personalities to bloggers, quickly seized on the narrative. Every snippet of Maino's comments and every subtle reference from Jim Jones became a piece of the puzzle. Some analysts suggested that this feud was more than music. It was a test of influence and credibility within Harlem's hierarchy, where a misstep could ripple across careers. Fans online were split. Some sided with Maino, praising him for standing up for loyalty and holding even veterans accountable. Others defended Jim Jones, arguing that personal relationships and musical endorsements shouldn't be judged through the lens of street politics. The division was clear, and the debate spread like wildfire across Twitter threads, Instagram posts, and YouTube comment sections. Meanwhile, insiders alleged that conversations behind the scenes were taking place, with mutual friends and associates trying to mediate. Private meetings, texts, and calls reportedly occurred, aiming to de-escalate the tension before it exploded publicly. Some sources claim these discussions had mixed results. Maino remained firm in his stance, while Jim Jones opted for measured responses, careful not to escalate the situation further. The drama intensified when subtle jabs appeared online. Maino's interviews and social media activity hinted at disapproval without naming names, while Jim Jones' responses, sometimes cryptic, sometimes indirect, added layers of intrigue. Fans dissected every emoji, every phrase, and every post, trying to read between the lines and figure out who would make the next move. Adding to the complexity is the Maxby factor. The Brooklyn rapper, a polarizing figure with his own history of controversy, was central to the debate. Insiders suggest that his legacy, influence, and perceived alliances have made him a lightning rod for opinions. Supporting Maxby, in the context of Harlem's loyalty culture, was not just a casual statement. It carried implications about alignment, priorities, and respect. By now, the feud had taken on a life of its own. Hip-hop commentators, including online personalities with massive followings, began analyzing the drama in minute detail. Every word, gesture, and interview snippet became fuel for theories, conspiracies, and fan debates. Some argued that the feud was manufactured for publicity. Others insisted it reflected genuine tension and shifting alliances in Harlem's hip-hop community. The stakes were not just personal, they were professional. Both Maino and Jim Jones have established careers, reputations, and legacies that can be influenced by public perception. In Harlem, where respect is currency, a misstep in loyalty could have lasting repercussions. Some insiders claim that certain figures tried to mediate to prevent long-term damage, while others let the drama unfold naturally, aware that the streets will always debate perception over fact. Fans also noticed the strategic silence from Jim Jones. In hip-hop, silence can be a weapon. It allows speculation to grow, forces opponents to act, and protects reputation while letting the audience fill in the blanks. But this silence also added tension. Every day without a direct response intensified the debate, leaving Maino's public statements in sharper focus. Meanwhile, Maino's calculated approach continued to dominate conversations. Every interview, every post, and every appearance reinforced his message: loyalty matters, respect matters, and no one is above accountability. Supporters praised his courage, arguing that in a community where many choose to stay silent, speaking up sends a powerful signal about principles and standards. As the feud played out, some commentators pointed to a larger pattern in Harlem hip-hop. Longtime alliances are constantly tested as new generations emerge, older veterans navigate evolving careers, and social media amplifies every move. The Maino versus Jim Jones situation became a case study in how perception, loyalty, and influence collide in a modern hip-hop context. Even more interestingly, this feud sparked discussions beyond Harlem. Fans and commentators in other cities debated the ethics, street codes, and implications of public loyalty statements. What was once local drama became a national talking point, illustrating how social media can magnify conflicts far beyond their origins. One thing was certain: this wasn't a simple disagreement. It was a clash of legacies, influence, and public perception, a situation that tested relationships, reputations, and the very rules that govern street credibility. We'll explore the final aftermath, including how Harlem streets reacted, the long-term implications for both Maino and Jim Jones, and why this feud may continue to be discussed long after the headlines fade. By the time Harlem streets fully absorbed Maino putting Jim Jones on blast, it was clear that this wasn't just another internet feud. It had become a lesson in loyalty, perception, and influence that would linger for months, if not years. What began as a single post spiraled into debates, speculation, and public discussions that reached far beyond the local hip-hop scene. Sources close to the Harlem community suggest that the fallout affected not just the two artists, but the larger ecosystem of relationships, alliances, and respect. Friends and collaborators began reevaluating where their loyalties lay. Every subtle action, from posting a comment to appearing at an event, was scrutinized through the lens of this feud. To many, this was a demonstration of how one statement or action could shift the balance of power in Harlem hip-hop overnight. Jim Jones, a seasoned veteran, reportedly approached the situation with caution. Silence, some insiders claim, was his strategy. By not responding aggressively, he avoided giving Maino more fuel while allowing speculation to fill the void. Yet in a city where perception often outweighs fact, silence alone became a statement, a subtle acknowledgement that the feud had consequences, even if unspoken. Maino, meanwhile, reinforced his stance with consistency. Interviews, social media activity, and street interactions all emphasized accountability, loyalty, and the idea that influence comes with responsibility. For his supporters, this was a reaffirmation that Harlem's values cannot be ignored, regardless of fame, legacy, or personal relationships. The Maxby factor remained central. Analysts argue that this element transformed the story from a personal disagreement into a symbol of street politics and broader hip-hop ethics. Supporting Maxby, intentionally or not, became a flashpoint for conversations about loyalty, respect, and the expectations placed on influential figures. Fans online dissected every interaction. Reaction videos, Twitter threads, and YouTube analyses proliferated, further amplifying the story. Some praised Maino as the voice of integrity, while others sympathized with Jim Jones, seeing the situation as a misinterpretation blown out of proportion. Yet all agreed on one point: the feud had changed perceptions of both artists. The streets themselves weighed in. Conversations in Harlem weren't just about who was right or wrong, they were about the principles that define the community. Loyalty, respect, and accountability became the core of every discussion. Some argued that Jim Jones' support of Maxby reflected independence and personal choice. Others insisted it violated unspoken rules, threatening the foundation of street credibility. Meanwhile, industry insiders observed the situation as a case study in reputation management. Every public action had consequences, and every perceived misstep could ripple through careers. For younger artists, this feud became a lesson. Visibility comes with responsibility, and every choice is scrutinized not only by fans, but by peers who know the stakes. By the end of the fallout, one reality was clear: Maino and Jim Jones had both navigated a complex landscape where loyalty and influence collide. Their actions, whether intentional or misunderstood, had sparked debates that extended beyond Harlem into national conversations about respect, ethics, and street credibility. Some sources suggest that while the feud may simmer down publicly, the legacy of this moment will linger. Social media may move on, and news cycles may shift, but street memory is long. In Harlem, stories like this are retold in bars, studios, and gatherings, each retelling preserving the tension and lessons learned. This feud also highlights the evolving role of digital platforms in hip-hop. Every post, comment, or video now carries weight, potentially escalating private disagreements into public spectacles. Both Maino and Jim Jones experienced firsthand how perception spreads faster than explanation, and how digital amplification can turn a moment into a cultural conversation. Ultimately, this situation is more than just drama. It's about legacy, accountability, and influence in Harlem hip-hop. Maino's call-out reminded the community that street codes still matter, while Jim Jones' cautious response demonstrated that experience and strategy can be as powerful as words. The feud is a blueprint for understanding modern hip-hop dynamics, where loyalty, respect, and perception intersect in unpredictable ways. So, what's next? Will Maino and Jim Jones reconcile? Will alliances shift further? Or will this story remain a cautionary tale for artists navigating fame, influence, and street politics? Only time will tell. One thing is certain, Harlem's streets won't be forgotten. Fans will continue debating, insiders will continue analyzing, and the story of Maino putting Jim Jones on blast over Max B will remain a defining chapter in the community's ongoing conversation about loyalty, respect, and influence. The lesson is clear. In hip-hop, especially in Harlem, every move matters, and the streets are always watching. Now that you've seen the full breakdown of Maino putting Jim Jones on blast after supporting Max B, the question is, what do you really think happened behind the scenes? Was this a clash of loyalty, a misstep in judgment, or something much deeper that only the streets truly understand? The debate isn't just online, it's alive in Harlem, in conversations, and across the hip-hop community. We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts, opinions, and theories in the comments below. Do you think Maino was right to call Jim Jones out, or do you believe Jim Jones' support of Max B was harmless and misinterpreted? Which side has the stronger case, and what does this say about loyalty, respect, and influence in Harlem hip-hop? Don't forget to smash that like button if you're following this saga from start to finish. Every click helps us bring you more deep dives into the hottest hip-hop controversies and street dramas. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the latest updates, breakdowns, and insider insights from the streets of Harlem and beyond. Finally, share this video with your friends and on social media, because the conversation isn't over, and the more people weigh in, the hotter the debate gets. This isn't just content, it's a discussion about power, influence, and respect in hip-hop, and your voice matters. So join in. Speak your mind, and let's see where this Maino versus Jim Jones saga really goes next.